Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us for today's virtual office hour. My name is Cassandra McGee. I'm a senior program manager with JFF, and we're glad you carved out time on this wonderful morning, the day after we jumped that hour forward. So we're glad that you're here with us today. As a reminder, this session will be recorded. So if you're not the primary speaker, we do request that you unmute your phone line for best call quality. However, we always welcome your questions and your input on the topic. You can share that via our chat box or during our live question and answer period. Today's discussion will focus on apprenticeship program success and design and will be led by Cheryl Olson, Director with Nevada Alliance for Youth Apprenticeship. This program is sponsored or funded by the U.S. Department of Labor's Youth Apprenticeship Intermediaries Project and is part of our Youth Apprenticeship work through JFF. And with that, I will turn it over to Andrea Messing-Matthey, who is a director with JFF. Andrea?
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us. As Cassandra mentioned, this is part of our virtual office hours series through our Youth Apprenticeship Works community of practice. This is a chance for us to come together as peers in this kind of new virtual working environment. So I have asked Cheryl Olson to come and share some information about her experiences building a youth apprenticeship program in Nevada, particularly in the healthcare occupations. Cheryl, can I pass it to you?
Absolutely. Thanks so much for joining everyone today. As Andrea mentioned, I'm Cheryl Olson, the Director of the Nevada Alliance for Youth Apprenticeship. I am with the Nevada System of Higher Education. I guess next slide. So I'll start off with kind of a base example of, kind of Nevada and apprenticeship. So as of, I guess it was 2015, Nevada was very much trade occupations for apprenticeship only. And then the community college, Truckee Meadows Community College, applied for the apprenticeship, the AAI grant. And that kind of led the boom of expansion of apprenticeship in Nevada, specifically expanding into advanced manufacturing, healthcare occupations, IT, and business operations. So with that success, kind of helped lay the groundwork for expanding into youth apprenticeship. Through that experience, though, we really, in working with the companies, they really expressed an interest for competency-based programs and stackable apprenticeships, which are perfect for youth apprenticeships, at least in my opinion. So as you'll see on the bottom, NSHE and TMCC, so NSHE is the Nevada System of Higher Education. I shouldn't have used that acronym, I apologize. And Truckee Meadows Community College, both serve as intermediaries and program sponsors for apprenticeships. And that was really in talking with the companies and their reluctance to embrace apprenticeship without some sort of support system. So with that, both the higher education system and the community college really have stepped up and served as the intermediary and sponsor for those programs. And with those partnerships, I think there's probably about 25 different employers that we're working with that offer apprenticeships through our sponsored programs. So next slide, please. So 2 years ago, Nevada System of Higher Education was awarded $2.5 million from the U.S. Department of Labor's Youth Apprenticeship Readiness Grant, and our project name is the Nevada Alliance for Youth Apprenticeship. As many of you are aware, that program focuses on expanding registered apprenticeships for youth 16 to 24 years old. Our project in Nevada, it's very much a statewide initiative. So it's led by the Nevada System of Higher Education, which oversees all public institutions within the state, which includes 4 community colleges, 2 universities, and a state college, as well as a research institution. With our project, we said we were going to serve 400 new registered apprentices within the 4-year grant period. And really, we've been focusing on healthcare occupations, and that's mainly because of past success with our AAI grant, but also because of the acute shortages with, specifically related to COVID, but just there was shortages even before. So that's kind of been our main focus at this point. So next slide, please. So some of the current occupations that we sponsor are the medical assistant, a certified nursing assistant, an emergency medical technician, or a critical care technician. And the reason they differentiate is because we work with both ambulance services, so they have the EMTs, but we also work with acute care hospitals. So the critical care technicians work in their ICU and the emergency department. We also have pharmacy technicians and dental assistants, which that's a new occupation for us that we're just getting started with. And next slide. We are in the process of building out additional occupations, which include the paramedic and paramedicine, which will kind of stack upon the EMT, and then also registered nurse. So these are still under development, but these are very much, we have a great partner with our local acute care hospital that is very much interested in expanding these because of their success with their apprenticeship program so far. And I'll say that when we built out these apprenticeship programs in healthcare, really we weren't focused exclusively on youth, but because of the success that we had with the broad range of the participants, we really tried to have different tracks where we could attract youth populations, but still maintain adult populations as well. And by saying that, like I'll use an example for our certified nursing assistant program. That was the first occupation that we launched. And that program, it is offered, the related technical instruction is offered through the community college. And it's something that the courses are offered during the middle of the day. So in-school youth wouldn't necessarily be able to take that program, and the high schools don't actually have a certified nursing assistant program, at least in the northern Nevada area. So really that focus was primarily on the adult population, but that program was so successful that the hospital said, well, we'd really like to expand this to the youth population. So we actually started recruiting the high school seniors as they were as they were graduating to participate in the program, which we had a lot of success with that. But now we're actually expanding that to in-school youth. So we're having some programs exclusively for rising high school seniors, so in between their junior senior year, where they can participate. There's going to be a summer cohort, so it won't actually compete with any sort of regular high school coursework. And then we're going to have a fall and a spring cohort that will be after school. We're going to recruit from all of the high schools. And actually the school district is providing the transportation from the high schools to the facility for the training. So that's what I mean by, really our programs are really for all ages. Next slide, please. So this is kind of the career path or the different pathways that the students can take depending on their interest. So oftentimes we'll have, some sort of pre-apprenticeship coursework, which will include kind of career exploration, medical tech terminology, those types of really, base level training. And then from there, the students can enter into either a certified nursing assistant or a medical assistant. And those are the two main entry points, but they're not the only entry points. For example, we actually work, one of the high schools that we work with, they have an EMT program that's part of their high school curriculum. But the students are not eligible to get their EMT certification until they're 18 years old. So oftentimes the high school students will take the coursework, but they can't get certified until after they graduate. So some of those students will enter directly into the EMT critical care technician apprenticeship upon graduation. And then we'll count all of their training that they've received in high school. So, they'll get a leg up on that. So from the certified nursing assistant or the medical assistant, oftentimes they'll move into either the medical assistant or the EMT. Sometimes the certified nursing assistant will go direct into the registered nurse occupation, although that I'm sure with almost every state in the country, it's one of those programs that there's just not enough space in the registered nursing training programs that it's a very difficult entry, so very competitive. So that's why it's not necessarily a direct entry. But with our hospital partner, they actually provide the tuition reimbursement if they're not as part of a registered apprenticeship. So those are the main pathways that we have as part of our program, but we're definitely building that out. I didn't include our dental assistant or pharmacy tech and some of the other things that we do, but this is kind of the main one. So next slide, I think is just my contact information, but really I'm just going to open it up to any questions that anyone has.
Before I ask any of my questions, I just want to open it to the audience. What's kind of percolating for folks on the call?
This is Matt. I'm a huge fan of the work that Enchi does, and have been able to see some of it take place. But I think one of the things that's understated in the presentation, and maybe Cheryl can expand upon, is I think there's a lot of relationship building that took place. And Cheryl's a huge advocate, but I wonder if you maybe wouldn't expand on some of the hurdles as it relates to even some of the challenges when it comes to putting youth programs in schools that you've had to navigate and done a fantastic job doing, by the way.
Thanks, Matt. I'm happy to elaborate on that. And Matt is absolutely correct. It was a lot of relationship building to get where we are. First and foremost, it was difficult to even get, the conversation with the employers as to considering apprenticeship, because, really when you say the word apprenticeship, they always think of skilled trades. They don't think of how it could benefit their organization as a construction organization. So really having that success with our very first certified nursing assistant occupation really kind of created the an opportunity to speak with others about, non-traditional occupations for apprenticeship. Working with the high school, as I kind of touched on, it was very challenging to try to work with the high school because they love the idea, they love work-based learning, all of that. But then when you say the apprenticeship, they're thinking, well, we can't do that, and we don't have already built-in program within our high school curriculum. Yeah, we'd love to do it, but they just couldn't understand how to overcome some of those hurdles, the scheduling hurdles, dual credit. It just was, kind of insurmountable. So that's why we opted to kind of, we have demonstrated success with the students that are, just graduating from the, high school into apprenticeship. So they could see that their students would value from it. And that's when we decided, well, we'll do a cohort in the summer. So it's not going to compete with anything. And it was an easy way for the high school or the school district to get involved, saying, well, we can provide transportation. So it's kind of that easy entry. And, Nevada System of Higher Education is the apprenticeship program sponsor. So really we're supporting them with, with all of the administrative work of an apprenticeship. We're helping them with the recruitment. We're working very closely with, our employer to, for interviewing for the candidates. But yeah, it was very much a challenge with building those relationships. And Nevada is a state apprenticeship agency state. So even getting programs approved is not necessarily the easiest hurdle. So definitely lots of challenges, lots of relationships, and it's still a work in progress, but we're at least making some good progress, which is important when you have a grant. You said you're going to do things, you got to do it.
I have another question, but I don't want to take them all because I could ask lots. But so Enchi, the Nevada System of Higher Education being a sponsor, I think the sponsorship helps. Do you think the fact that it's an education-based Nevada organization, do you think that's helpful or a benefit as it relates to engaging or getting in the door with some of these folks?
It's definitely helpful in regards to working with an employer. I think that they're more receptive to it because they're used to working with education institutions in the sense that they serve on advisory committees. They are actively doing recruitment events at the the institution. So that definitely was a help. In Nevada specifically, I think it was more of a barrier for us to get approved as a program sponsor because we were an educational institution, and the Apprenticeship Council, which is the the approving group in our state, really couldn't understand that we were doing something different than just providing another education program. They thought we were just calling it apprenticeship so we could use grant funding and not doing anything different than we would with any other training. And I'll touch upon Jonathan's questions about the biggest hurdle that we've encountered. And I would actually have to say our biggest hurdle is our state apprenticeship agency, in the sense that they want to make sure that apprenticeship, has a very robust meaning, and they are very tied to time-based programs, just kind of the traditional way of doing apprenticeship. And so trying to get their support about some of our programs, specifically with youth, they've been kind of open about the sense that they don't believe in youth apprenticeship. They have, even on their website, it says that an apprentice, you can't be an apprentice until you're 18 years old. So trying to work with them to better understand what we're doing and the benefits of it, that we're not trying to pigeonhole youth into, a career path, that it's, it's opening doors for them. Like the CNA program, you have to become a certified nursing assistant to get into a nursing program in Nevada. So it's just one of those things that it's very beneficial, but trying to get the council to necessarily see it in our view is a challenge. Looks like there's another question about engaging students in the CTE programs and tips on getting in the door. So I've been very active in working with the CTE program, or the CTE coordinators within the school district. They're actually the first people I met with at the school district to try to expand our registered apprenticeship programs. And they've been very receptive to the idea, but the hurdles, they couldn't quite get past that. So I don't have any great tips on that. I'm still struggling with that myself. They're very supportive, but it's one of those that they have their priorities with their work-based learning and those types of things. So I just have to better understand how we can work together to ease their burden, as opposed to creating an additional burden for them to do apprenticeships. So not a lot of great advice in that. So let's see.
I actually do have a quick question, Cheryl. This is great. And I wanted to just put in here that there's something in the chat box that Kathleen Eddington put in here, that she said it's important to understand that it does look different in every state. In Virginia, SA State, they partner with the Virginia Department of Education and register students in the high school beginning in junior year in all apprentice-level occupations. So that's great. And Kathleen, I think would love to follow up with you on that. One of the questions that I have is how students actually kind of find their way into this apprenticeship program. So you're working with the high schools. It sounds like you have some struggle with the CTE programs. How are students, to your knowledge, making choices about their about how they get into these programs?
So we've actively provided information to the high schools, even recruitment flyers on their walls. So the counselors, we hope they know. We're trying to get the information to them. We try to meet with the CTE instructor. They have regular meetings, and we try to advise them on different opportunities for their youth. So there's that directly with the high school. We definitely have our website, social media, those types of things. And then the employers are recruiting directly into this as well. So it's definitely not, I mean, we definitely have room for improvement, but I think that we're doing a pretty good job of getting the information to the students. But I would say that we're not doing a great, we're not connecting with out of school youth as much as, I think we should and could. You know, because we work with the community college, we have that population that we can recruit to. But if there's anyone that's under, you know, that's under 18 that's out of school, we just don't have a connection to them. So we need to improve in that area.
So I want to make sure I open the floor for folks. What are some questions that you might have for Cheryl about whether it's about healthcare, occupations, or it's about the youth apprenticeship structure? Let's just open that up. So Cassandra actually posted in the chat, what's next for student recruitment or program expansion?
For student recruitment, I am really excited about the reemergence of in-person, you know, job fairs and those types of things. I think that will help us really reach out to students that are looking for job opportunities, which, you know, it's sometimes hard to do with just online types of recruitment. Program expansion, definitely. Well, we're venturing into IT occupations, which we hope to actually incorporate within healthcare organizations as well. So, you know, IT is definitely an area that we're going to be expanding into. You know, the tech support specialists, network support specialists, all of those kind of entry level IT occupations. Aside from that, I didn't mention the work that we're doing in manufacturing, but we're very heavily engaged with Panasonic and Tesla for manufacturing occupations. So we are trying to build that out and do more pre-apprenticeship training for in-school youth, because both of those organizations, they are desperate for employees, as are so many other employers across the country, but they can't hire anyone until 18. And being such large organizations, trying to change that would be, you know, a behemoth task. So definitely trying to do some more pre-apprenticeship and direct entry into their existing registered apprenticeship programs.
So Jake posted in the chat box, are there any challenges with working with youth under 18 from the employer industry perspective, particularly in healthcare? And are you seeing limitations in what apprentices can do on the job as minors?
I would say probably the biggest challenge is when there's some sort of licensing requirement that they have to be 18, with specifically with like our EMTs. That's definitely the biggest challenge that we have, because, you know, we work with employers that would love to hire them, and you know, they'll hire them in other occupations until they can get their EMT certification. But really, I think that's where the biggest challenge is when there's licensing issues that, you know, are age restricted.
Jake, did you want to ask a follow-up question about that?
No, that's helpful to understand. So you're seeing in the certified nursing assistant, and I don't recall every step in the path from that previous slide, but like what kind of jobs are they working in under 18, I guess, aside from like CNA?
Yeah, so the main one is the certified nursing assistant, but also the medical assistant. We actually have an occupation for a medical front office representative, which is, you know, more of a clerical type of medical assistant. And those have been great in the sense that, you know, they can work part-time, so they can still work while they're going to school. Some of the other, you know, the EMT would be great, and we actually work with our ambulance company, and the students that have been trained as an EMT, but they're not quite at 18, so they can't start, or they can't get licensed as an EMT or start their apprenticeship. They're working as like a supply technician, so they're, you know, stocking the ambulance and doing all of that type of support, but not actually as a licensed EMT. So those are really kind of the main areas that students that are under 18 are working in.
Super helpful. Any last questions from our audience? Well, I just want to say thank you to Cheryl for sharing this incredible information. And I'm kind of looking through the slides again, and very interested by this health career pathway. I want to spend some more time digging through this. So I also want to share that please join our movement, the Youth Apprenticeship Works movement. This is a community of practice that we have put together in this new virtual working environment, even though we're going to be in person more. And this is for those folks who are either engaged in or looking to expand registered youth apprenticeship programs. This is a great way to stay connected with the work and connected with other practitioners. And if you have anything that you want to reach out to Cheryl about, I'm sure, Cheryl, if you don't mind posting your email information in the chat box, but you can also reach out to Cassandra or myself. And thanks very much for all of your time. I really appreciate it. Thanks so much, everybody. Have a great day.
Thank you.